Knitting with hospital gloves. What's it mean? Well, you are going to learn tonight when I talk to the author, Karen Rinehart, and exactly what it means and how it's going to help all of us. Karen, the best authors are ones that write about things that they deal with in life. The best singers, when they go through a breakup or, something happens in their life. So it's really about those stories that we experience because how better to write it than going through it. And what we're going to talk about tonight is our aging parents. And you wrote the book on it about the experiences that you went through. But, at a certain period in your life, people are going to have children. And a certain period in your life, you're going to go through things with aging parents. And that is the period that some of us are at. And, what I want you to share with our audience is some of the things that helped you. I know with your situation, your family did not live in the same area, correct?
Right. They lived 5 states away.
Right.
So when you get that phone call, which is usually how someone learns they're a caregiver, is the phone rings and they say, Dad's in the hospital, it's not good, you need to get here.
Right.
And so, which is really where my book picks up, is you get that phone call, what do you do? What do you pack? How do you find a flight? How do you get there?
Right.
And then once you get there, what are you going to see? I had a girlfriend whose mom had a stroke, and other than having kids, she'd never been in a hospital.
Right.
And she said, Karen, I literally felt assaulted when I walked in the hospital doors because it's such a foreign environment.
Right.
And it's very intimidating. So we go through that, what you're going to see with what you're going to see with the patient, how to speak with doctors, what to expect, and just walking you through that crisis when you're the most stressed and the most scared.
Right. And every situation's different. I mean, I read that you got a call once from your mom and then once from your dad, different, obviously, scenarios, but still the call. It's like the call that you dread in the middle of the night when there's something wrong. It's either one of your children or something's happened because it's the timing of the call. And, there are so many things, like you said, just the airline ticket, it's cheaper oftentimes to do a one-way flight.
Exactly.
Because you really don't know when you're going to come back.
Yeah.
And if you have to change it, there's the change fees
Right.
and, what to take. And, really about having people around to help you. Like you said, you had a friend and, she was there for you just when you needed to get away or even to go see your parents before you were able to get there on the flight.
That was a lifesaver. Ironically, I happen to have a sorority sister and 2 sorority sisters that are both really good friends now. One I barely knew, one was my maid of honor, who happened to live in my parents' city. And they were able to get over to the hospital and see my parents before I could get there.
Right.
And fill me in and, be with my mom. And that's kind of rare. I was very fortunate in that situation. Because a lot of times you're going to places like, a lot of our parents have moved. They've retired and moved from our hometown, so you don't know anybody there.
Right. So. And I wouldn't say it's any easier because I have a really good friend that lives in Charlotte, and her mother just had to be put in a facility because she needs full-time care. And she is in, the same city, but still it's difficult because her mother still wants to feel like she's in control of everything, wants to feel like that she is going to come back to her house, but she's not ever going to because she needs full-time care, so it's really, it's a state where, the parents, have not come to terms with it, nor do they want to because no one wants to think that life changes that quickly, that fast, and you can't go back to it. That's the difficult part.
It's scary. They don't want to give up their independence.
Right.
They're scared of the unknown.
Right.
And sometimes it's even harder for a friend like yours who's in town because they may get the brunt of the stress and the caretaking and the visits and the decision making.
Right. We're going to talk about that. In fact, you had to have the brunt of a lot of it in your situation too. So we're going to talk about how to deal with that after we take a quick break. All of that when we come back with author Karen Rinehart.
You're watching The Debra Kennedy Show. Join former Mrs. North Carolina USA, Debra Kennedy, as she reveals the secrets that will help you look younger, feel and be more beautiful, and live a happier, healthier, higher quality life. Every Saturday night at 9:30, right here on Access 21.
Now we're back with author Karen Rinehart. we were talking about before the break, ways to not feel guilty. We actually want some tips from you, but
Okay.
you were the caregiver. Lots of times it is the sister, the female,
Right.
that it
The
gets-
daughter.
the daughter that, because if it's a mother, they feel more comfortable with their daughter, and if it's a father, for sometimes we can usually get more free time because the men usually they have full-time jobs,
Right.
and that was your situation. I read in your book, it was so funny about your brother that was calling, doing all these questioning
Right.
your actions, and
From 1,000 miles away.
from 1,000 miles as he was working his full-time job. And how do you not feel guilty? How do you get over the not guilty anger, I guess is what I'm saying. How do you not feel anger towards you having to do everything, yet he's calling and dictating to you what he feels? How do you get over that?
I had to keep focusing on how fortunate I am that I have a job. Since I have a home office, I can pick up and work from anywhere, and I have a very
Right.
understanding boss too. So I'm very fortunate in that. I really a sense of humor.
Right.
I remember hanging up with my brother one day, and I'm just like screaming at my mother. I'm like, "Your son is driving me crazy." She's like,
Right.
"I know." And I finally actually had to give myself permission to nicely but firmly say to my brother, "I can't talk to you right now. I need to go.
Right.
I cannot talk to you any longer. I need to go." Before I screamed at him and hung up.
Right.
And I found that to be really effective to say, "You know what, I cannot do this right now."
Right.
And then you end it before you say something you regret.
And truly, you have to think of the common goal. The common goal is
Exactly.
really to have the best care for the aging parent or the parent that is in the hospital going through the double bypass surgery or whatever. So, all these emotions, you're tired, your brother's worried, he can't be there. So I think just finding the underlining piece of it is that you all want the same thing.
Exactly. And I talk about that a lot, is that it always comes down to what's in the best interest of the patient.
Right.
And there's a chapter on siblings and how everybody kind of has a different role to play. And you if you step back and watch, you'll see them fall into it naturally.
Right.
One person might be the one who's good with cracking jokes and keeping the patient entertained.
Right.
The other one might be the one who's really good at sending out emails and keeping the rest of the world informed.
Right.
So everybody has their strong points. And it's a tough time for siblings.
Right.
There is a lot of stress, and people do things differently, and you might look and think that their way is the wrong way, whereas that's just the way they're wired.
Mm-hmm.
So you just have to keep reminding yourself, everybody handles a crisis differently.
Right. And communication. Talking
Exactly.
about
And
it.
what is our goal?
Right.
What's best for the patient?
Right. And I would think it'd be very difficult for the parents because they're so proud, they don't want to be sick, and they probably feel like sometimes they're a burden to the person or the family members that are taking care of them and taking away from their families. So I would think too, that would be a very difficult situation.
It's a whole other dynamic, and something that I was just talking to my husband about is that I've seen this with my parents, with my aunt, with relatives, with friends, family. The older patient and spouse, they could be the most smart, intelligent, powerful people on the planet. They get into that hospital setting and they shrink. I mean, physically, I've seen people just cower.
It's intimidating.
It's intimidating,
Right.
and they
It's
feel
scary.
they're so dependent
Right.
on the medical staff and the doctors that they're afraid to do anything wrong, say anything wrong. And they just turn into pod people.
Right.
And it's amazing to see very strong, capable people. You put them in the hospital and they just,
Right.
and that's really, you have to remember that. And I've actually stepped in before helping my cousins when my aunt was in the hospital, and just recently a friend of mine.
Right.
And she said, "Karen," she goes, "I run business meetings. I own my own business." She goes, "I get here in this hospital and look at my mom and I fall apart."
Right.
But that's just to be expected.
Right. Well, we're so excited that you wrote this book, Knitting with Hospital Gloves, because, like I said, through your own experiences, those experiences could help other people that are just starting this process.
And that's exactly why I did it. I
And
looked at
it's-
my cousin's face,
right.
and he was just frozen. And I said,
Right.
"Brian, I've been thinking about writing this little guidebook." He
Right.
goes, "I could really use it right now."
And it's like you have a guidebook to Disney World,
Yep,
and you have a
exactly.
guidebook to vacationing. Why not have a guidebook to help others go through situations so that maybe you can help them in some way? Thank you so much for
You're
coming
so welcome.
to our set tonight. You're amazing. I love your daughter, Mel. She's at Sweet Briar.
Yes,
So
she
we wanna
is. She
send a
loves you.
Shout out to her, our little amazing actress. She's gorgeous, just like her mother.
Oh.
So we hope you would come back and visit. But thank you so much for all. I mean, you're just writing so many witty, great things, but just especially for this book. We thank you for coming and sharing with us tonight.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, gorgeous. So you too can seek help, and no matter what it is, if you're going through a struggle with an aging parent, you're not alone. And there's so many resources out there to help you, just like the book that Karen has come to share with us tonight. So we hope this has helped you through the difficult situation each and every day to learn, to deal with it, and to guide you.